watching NRATV with Bill Whittle.
Hi, everybody. It's Bill Whittle broadcasting live from Los Angeles, California on the very first episode of our new show here on NRATV called Bill Whittle's Hot Mic. I don't know what time Hot Mic is going to actually arrive, but until Hot Mic gets here, I'm Bill Whittle, your host, and just over the hill from me is Los Angeles, California. The show we have for you here is going to be looking at things a little different probably than some of the things we've talked about before on NRATV, because this show is basically going to be about Hollywood versus America and the New York news agencies versus America as well, because that's really what it comes down to. And a lot of people think that the pop culture is just an element in this cultural war we're fighting. It's not. It's not a battlefield. The pop culture is everything. It is where all of the other battles are fought. It's how the left primarily gets their messages into the minds of the American people. And I used to work over there in Hollywood, so I kind of consider myself a day walker. I'm a vampire that slays other vampires. I know how these people work, and I'm determined to expose as much of this as we possibly can during the course of the show, which is going to be a lot of fun. Now, for those of you out here who don't really understand or maybe fully appreciate, I know that's not many of you on this station, just how rotten and anti-American and especially anti-conservative Hollywood celebrities are. We put together just a tiny little package just to kind of whet your appetite for the kind of things that we're going to be fighting during the weeks, months, years, and decades of the run of this show. So let's have a look at what Hollywood has to say about America and President Trump specifically.
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House. I'm not nasty like the combo of Trump and Pence.
He's a punk, he's a dog, he's an idiot, he's an embarrassment to this country.
He's not right mentally.
Lie before war!
Don, this is a fake news story. The underlying assumption
thank you very much, everyone.
That...
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Form your region of resistance.
Donald Trump.
Charming people, aren't they? Just charming. These are the people that program our kids' minds and our grandkids' minds and our minds as well. It's been going on for a long time, and somebody needs to point it out. So we're not only going to be talking about Hollywood celebrities. In other words, we're not only going to be talking about stupid people who are trying to look smart. We're also going to spend some time on smart people while they end up looking stupid. For example, just after the recent terror attacks in London, I know that's a horrible thing to have to say here, but I mean the most recent ones. We had some evidence of a group of Muslims protesting in favor of diversity and tolerance. In other words, Muslims out in the street to protest against the Islamic killings in London. So here's the footage that I think is very, very interesting. If you look at this, you'll see that the number of Muslims out there to protest against this mass murder in London, I would not call that an excessive group of people. Not by any means, but here's what's interesting. If you look carefully, what you'll be able to see here is the CNN producers of this story herding people together. Now, why are they doing that? They're herding people together in order to make the shot look as focused as possible. They're trying to make this group of people look as big as they possibly can using the confines of the television frame. This is what we call fake news, because real news means just turning on the camera and seeing what we're seeing right now, which is essentially no counter-protest, no people in London standing up, no Muslims in London standing up against this outrage, but CNN is trying to make us believe that there is. So I know and you know that this goes on, but the big question is why? Why does this go on? Well, first question I have is, what if they gave a social engineering event and nobody came? You know, I mean, that's really the first thing we're doing. But the main thing to understand about the news media, and CNN specifically, is they're making us believe that there are more Muslims protesting this latest attack than there are, because they don't trust us. They don't trust us with the truth, and they don't trust us with the news. What do I mean by that? Well, these New York elitists feel that all the rest of it in the country, you know, those of us in flyover country, we knuckle-driving savages with our backyard barbecues and our guns and all the rest of it, they're utterly convinced that if we realized that there was no counter-protest, if we realized how deep Islam was into this whole thing, they think that we would march down the streets of America, drag every single innocent Muslim family out of their homes and beat them to death with a tire iron. That's what they think of us. So if you've ever wondered why they're constantly skewing the news and making things like this protest that wasn't a protest happen, it's because they don't trust us at all, not even a little bit. And this is something we're going to be pointing out during the run of the show. Now, speaking of CNN, a couple days ago, right after the terror attack, Donald Trump said this is why we need a travel ban. And a CNN host by the name of Rez Aslan decided to get on Twitter and talk about it. Now, here's what he wrote. He said, this piece of blank president is not just an embarrassment to America and staying on the presidency. He's an embarrassment to mankind. He also went on to say that his son was also a piece of the same stuff, just like his piece of the same stuff father. Now, this is coming from a host of CNN. As I say, his name is Rez Aslan. And Rez Aslan is CNN's resident zombie, basically. Now, I know you're probably thinking, resident zombie, that's rather a harsh thing to say about a guy, Bill, but it turns out that Rez has a show on CNN called Believers. And in one of the episodes of Believers, he went and looked at a Hindu sect, sort of an offshoot sect of Hinduism called the Aghoris. And while Rez was doing his show on the Aghoris, Rez ate human brains on camera. So when I say he's a zombie, I'm not joking. He's a guy that walks around eating human brains. You know, stories are stories and programs are programs, and everybody's got a job. But there comes a point where there's a line that you're maybe not going to cross. You know, I think we should all have a line that we're not going to cross. For me, personally, the line I'm not going to cross is I'm not going to be eating any human brains on this show. If that means you're going to leave, if there's lack of excitement, probably better let you know now. We're not eating any human brains on this show. But Rez basically is that kind of guy. He tweeted those kind of things. And among the many responses, and I mean the many responses, probably the best one, or certainly the most powerful one, came from Brent Bozell of the Media Research Institute. He called on CNN to fire Rez. And in order to talk more about Rez and the rest of this media bias, we're very happy today to have with us Christian Roby, who's the political director of the Media Research Center. Christian, how are you? Good to see you.
I'm doing great, Bill. Thanks for having me on. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks. We'll talk about Rez and specifics in a moment or two, but my first take on this, Christian, was that I'm going to start taking the left a little more seriously when they start showing the same amount of outrage to the murders as they do to the people who are commenting on the murders.
Yeah, the hypocrisy on the part of the left is absolutely astounding. And, you know, you don't have to just look at CNN. You can see this across the boards on MSNBC, ABC, NBC, CBS. But the faux outrage that you showed there before that they were trying to orchestrate, they would have gotten away if there wasn't somebody there with a camera that was willing to go public with this. So I think the American people are starting to wake up to this.
Yeah, you're really onto it here, Christian, because this is it, right? We saw the same kind of thing with Hillary Clinton on the 9/11 anniversary, where she stumbled into the limousine. CNN or some newspaper said she stumbled getting off the curb. She collapsed into the car. And we wouldn't have known that based on CNN or any other news agency, ABC. We found out because two people had cell phone footage. So, again, we'll come back to Rez in a second, Christian, but what does that say about the future of mainstream media news when pretty much 160 million Americans are walking around with high-definition television cameras in their pockets at any given moment, like the one I'm holding right here?
Uncertain, right? You know, is it possible? Look, these folks have to make a buck. They have business models. And if the product that they're dishing out keeps on taking the hits that it's taking, this is a hit on their brand, and they are going to start to lose, and I want to talk about this in a little bit, they're going to start to lose some revenue from advertising dollars because no one's want to go on these shows where they're losing audiences from a lack of credibility. And that is what is happening right now as a result of these citizen journalists, which is what these Americans are, who are showing us what the media will not show us. They're showing us what the media is censoring deliberately.
So back to Rez and his lovely tweet about the president, and he's an on-camera person for CNN. What was Rez's response to this call for being fired by the president of your organization, among many, many other people?
What was Rez's response?
Yeah, what was and CNN's as well?
Yeah, so this is interesting. You got to unpack this a little bit. He said, "I lost my cool and I responded to him in a derogatory fashion. That's not like me." That last part there is the important part. CNN dutifully accepted his apology, and that is all that has happened now. If you go on the website, he's still listed as the host of the Believer series. But what's interesting, getting back to that apology, is he said it's not like me. Well, you know, the guy has a history of, and you alluded to one of these other ones, on Twitter specifically, but I'm sure there are other places where he just uses very profane, derogatory, sometimes violent language directed towards conservatives, using the type of language that he used towards the president. So it is like him. It is like
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it is like him. This is a pattern.
Exactly like him. As a matter of fact, I mentioned earlier that he ate human brains on an episode, and it caused a backlash from Hindus in America and around the world, basically saying, you're presenting this as our religion. We don't go around eating human brains. We've been trying to put this temple of doom, slur down for 40 years now, and you come out here and do it again. This guy is not exactly completely tightly wound here either. By the way, there's something that CNN replied to about this, Christian. And do we have the CNN response? The CNN response tweet that they issued? Not Reza. Here it is. It says Reza Aslan is not a CNN employee, but he does host a series on the network. Let's just stop right there for a second. He's not a CNN employee, but he has his own show on the network. Okay, CNN, whatever you said. A CNN spokesman said in a statement, we are pleased that he has apologized for his tweets. That kind of discourse is never appropriate. So let me make sure I understand this, Christian, real quick before we go to break. He's got a show on CNN, but he doesn't represent CNN, and he's not an employee of CNN. Presumably he gets paid by McDonald's or Walmart or somebody.
Yeah, go figure. If you can figure that out, I have some really good bridges to sell you down in Louisiana. But, he is still listed as the host on CNN. CNN, whatever it is that they want to, whatever the status is that they want to give to him, they could do the same thing that they did with Kathy Griffin, who did something that was equally appalling, and they could have severed ties with him, which is exactly what they should do. And they would be smart to do it. Whatever it is, whatever relationship he has with them, it needs to end.
Well, Christian, CNN is hemorrhaging money. We'll talk about that when we come back after the break. And they could save a lot of cash if they'd simply fire all of their hosts that say outrageous, un-American things. But, then they wouldn't have any network along with any viewers either. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to be back with our friend Christian Roby from the Media Research Institute. We're going to be talking about some of the wonderful things going on inside what Donald Trump calls the failing New York Times. Welcome to the first episode of Hot Mic with Bill Whittle. We'll be back in just a moment.